So I've just kicked off the graph view, and it is going on behind here. Oh, no, it isn't. You can see it's going off on the processor. The main bottleneck here is the amount of memory on this particular computer. Now, this laptop is a little more than a typewriter, and it's where I type up my articles, newsletters, special reports. Okay, there it goes in the background. You can see the graph is starting to come up. There are, oh, let's see if we can get this on the side here. There are 20,000 notes. It's almost completely unusable. Notice 51% graphics card kicking out here as the dots form on the screen. CPU is at 94%. Fully aware that anything I click on the screen is going to cause some kind of issue. Now, a lot of times when we kick off a graph view or some of the machine learning stuff, this anti-malware kicks up, turns on. I don't even know if this is properly recording. I do see the recording registering, but Obsidian is dead in the water. So we're going to close that there. We're going to close the source controls there. See if we can't get the big screen back up. Now we're on airplane mode right now because the internet goes down about 9:30 where we're located. Because from 9:30 forward is focused writing time. It's in here drilling down, writing, drilling down, organizing notes for different deliverables that I have. And at 29,000, I think it is, 29,000 notes on a clapped out old ThinkPad. It's a Lenovo ThinkPad. It is a little bit slow, but it isn't completely broken. Here we go. I'll let you glory in the formation of the constellation, which is my second brain here at 3 minutes. And I don't call it my second brain. A lot of people consider it a second brain. It is a personal knowledge management system that contains more than 30 years of writing, mostly notes that remain, because any published book, any published materials, I actually remove those old notes from the system here. Now we are using some zettelkasten. We are using old catalogs of materials. The biggest document here has 90,000 words. And as soon as I'm done proofing that revision, it's going to stay in Scrivener. And I have a separate GitHub repository for that particular book. But I may have made some revisions in this copy. And so I've got to go through it page by page to make sure I carry over all the changes and make sure the Scrivener's up to date. But you can see it filling in. There are editorial topics lists in here. Okay, so we have 29,983 files. Now I'm trying to record with the lowest overhead possible. I'm not sure that the audio is going to work, but this is the world, and it has, we'll show you the settings here. It has the tags, existing files only. We're omitting some dashboards. We're omitting some schedule items. And I don't really worry too much about repelling forests and all that other kind of stuff. You can see it builds terribly slow. But you can see some core points here. Some organizations. So most of the clustering in my references are organizations, individuals, nouns, different types of places, different kinds of companies. And so that helps build some valuable relationships. Also, the linkage between individual documents. So I might have a campaign file that links to a report and a report that links to a manuscript, because the report is a sidecar to the manuscript and it contains the to-do list and things, where the manuscript itself is ready to export via Pandoc from Obsidian. And so you can see everything coming together here. I zoomed in just a hair, but it'll fill the whole screen up. Now the coloration is, some of it is job search, some of it's risk management, some of it is business development. Job search is my contracts, looking for contracts, looking for writing assignments, employment opportunities, different things that come across my plate. The business development content is my subject matter expertise in business development. And then risk management is my risk management subject matter expertise. And so the different colors are filters. And you can see little clusters here and there. There's different category groupings. There's the recreational writing in here as well. But as you can see, other than the beauty of this constellation, this is pretty useless. So I'm going to go ahead and stop this and show you what I typically do. But before I stop it, I want to make sure we got the task manager up. So you can see it's still taking nearly 100% of the processor. It's still taking nearly 100% of the memory on the computer, 74% of the memory on the computer. It is currently rocking and rolling on the graphics card. And then when I go close this little button up top, you'll see everything drop. It takes a little while for it to drop. All right, everything's dropped. CPU's going back to normal. GPU's going back to normal. Memory does not go back to normal because there's still a lot in memory here. You see a gig and a half. But what I typically do, and this is what I was working on earlier, holding meals for events. This is what I typically work. So these are notes collecting information about the events, the meals that we serve at events. And it's part of my event management, event marketing magic. And then what I typically do is I look for clusters using graph analysis. So Jacquard, for example, might identify different kinds of content that is relevant to the key topic. And you can see there's a little graph down at the bottom. And so you can see that there's some personal timeline elements, and that's probably because I talk about experience at the bottom of this page. So that's probably why that was found in there. Factors that influence customer retention. When you use dinner events, customer appreciation events, those impact customer retention. And so it's more functional for me to write using this little tiny graph. Sometimes I'll even just throw an outline on there. And I'll use the tiny graph to kind of zoom into some key content. And see, there's the experiences that I was looking at. So this is how I know how to write on this topic. And then there's also linkages to different notes and different organizations that are on and off the main chart. So I can be thinking about location, individuals. I could be thinking about experiences, tips and tricks while I'm gathering those into a note. And then whether I'm going to put that into my event marketing program, which is a binder that teaches people how to use events to promote their business, which is in the subcategory of business development. We will have all these materials in one place. You can see my CPU utilization is still very high, but remember, this is a i5 processor, 2.2 gigahertz. It is an old laptop, but it doesn't matter to me because my writing system works. My writing system is about getting the words on the page, getting them organized in such a way that we can start drilling down into key topics. And I'll just pull up the I'm going to pull up the Event Marketing Magic because I know I have a report sidecar for that one. Now again, we have these mappings coming through here. I don't need to see that all the time. We're going to pull up the event marketing magic. Now remember, I'm video recording the screen, so probably about half of that CPU is tied up in just capturing what we got on the screen. But I am searching for something here, so it's going to burn the CPU up. That's 1%, 100% of the CPU. And again, the system is grinding, but I can still function around in here. Like I can pull up my daily list and I can, write little notes here and there. So while I'm looking for that report, I can say, okay, well, it's currently 22:27 recording a screen capture of graph analysis using what do we call this program? SnagIt. See, I can still capture things. Now, this hasn't found what we're looking for over here. And frankly, I don't think you should have to wait for it, but you can see what we've done is we've looked for the document type report. And again, this is how we publish materials. Not just write materials, but we publish materials. And so we don't need a fancy computer to build this stuff out. We don't need anything terribly expensive to do this. We can just use a crappy old laptop with our Obsidian vault in place. We don't have to have a lot of plugins. I have just a few plugins here. And of course, this did not come up with that report in the background, which could mean that the anti-malware stuff is still running. That anti-malware is a constant headache. See the anti-malware services right here? Constant headache. It runs every time we scan the disk, and it just gets in the way. But again, we're using 75% of the CPU. Most of the large percentage of that is the screen capture, and a large percentage of the GPU is the screen capture. But I was expecting to pull up Alright, so we're going to see how things are categorized. It's probably right here. This is probably the sidecar. Now, I create these sidecars because the full document could be located someplace else. So I found the sidecar, and the sidecar is a document. It's a note that is, see, I don't need to use the graph because, again, I can cluster ideas up using the internal tools. But this has our tasks. So it has our course. There's a course called Event Marketing Magic. It has the report. And in fact, I just noticed this report is 002. All right, because of the category. I've grouped it up in a package. And then here's things that need to be updated in the report. Here's my experience related to that. Now, you're going to see that previous document had an experience column. So I can say C, and then it was holding meals events. See, I can make that cross-reference. That's part of what we're seeing in that graph. And here's some more to-dos. So I want to finish the offer in the document. Here are some additional reference materials. This is another report in here from 2022, or a presentation from 2022. Here's some stuff to work on. Here's all the experts mentioned in here, and I'm going to go ahead and put a LaTeX index on those so that we get a nice index at the back of the book. Of course, here's the offers that are in the book. And then there's no manuscript here because this is a report that's outside of the system. This is a report that's located inside of another platform. And I'm not sure why I just clicked on it, but I can. The Obsidian library is the jumping off point for the content that I'm creating and publishing for clients. And so here is the actual, and it's in Scrivener. And so that's, we can do that another time, but it has my drafts and my make files to give me the actual report itself. So yeah, I could create this inside of Obsidian, and I can compile it and export it, but it's 90 pages long. So I don't want to have that inside of my Obsidian because it's now a separate standalone project. So again, that's why the graph analysis, once you start getting a larger system in place and having more consistent deliverables, that's why your larger graph analysis isn't that valuable. And then even when you have these micrograph analyses that are based on one document, see, this one document references all of these domains of individuals. So here's the Event Marketing Magic sidecar. Here's Dan Kennedy, who's referenced in here. And all the materials are about Dan Kennedy that I could draw from to improve the experience or the context in the actual finished report. And then I may even, because I see the separate experience, I may extract all of my event marketing related experience into a sidecar document, into another document, a note document, which is referenced down here. By the way, there's research to the book referenced. There could be experience related to the book referenced. All of these codes right here reference other products that could be mentioned in the book itself. And of course, these are all the, here's a place, FedEx office. I used to do meetings there. I worked for FedEx office for a while. We used to record events at FedEx office. The West End City Center was a meeting space we used for conferences. Again, we're developing the context and the notes around the deliverable in the Obsidian environment, and then we're extracting from that into our publishing side or into our deliverables for clients, or in like I have a bunch of proprietary materials that are extracted from here and created for clients that I might have an embargo on. So I can't use the materials for 3 to 5 years because it's been created or developed for a client. I have some COVID reports on that. I have some anti-money laundering reports that I can't publish until a certain amount of time. And so these embargoed materials are living either inside or outside of the Obsidian environment. Now, you might be using Obsidian, you might be using Zettler, you might be using LogSeq, you might be using 100 different programs, but the key is this repository is one place to keep all of your notes, and then if necessary, you extract out of this place in order to produce additional materials. Now, I do like Obsidian because I can create an entire report here inside the system. So this is 3,500 words, and this is a kind of a draft report. This is a, let me find one that's a little bit further along. Again, there's hundreds of reports in here because it's more than 30 years of materials. Here's a report on creating seminar-based products. See, that might go with event marketing. It might not. But ultimately, we're going to look for one more. If I don't see it, I'll just skip it. But I was looking for one that had a manuscript. Actually, again, learn how the search works, because I know it has a manuscript. So if I put manuscript in the copy, by the way, this investment advice collection is from 1995. So again, this is a longevity of notes. All right, here we go. This is a satirical report called Management by Pestering. And you'll notice here, it's coded for Pandoc by Jerry Dumas. And basically, this is a report, and it's a very special report, and it's a document that's in draft right now. It's a satirical book on management by pestering which is the worst practices put together to sound like they're useful. And then I mentioned earlier that I had a document that was, this one's 10,000 words. So some of the documents are quite big. And of course, I can just export them via Pandoc. I've got a couple more that, here you go, 100 headlines. Let's see, this one's probably better. Expert consulting model. That's what I was working on earlier today. So the expert consulting model is a complete playbook for expert consultants to attract high-ticket clients who pay, stay, and refer. And of course, it is 5,500 words. And essentially, I can just export it into a PDF file. And you can see I'm working through it. I'm editing. I'm doing some outlines. So some of the chapters might be an outline to begin with. And then I'll come out and flesh them out. And there you go. There's even graphs in here done with Mermaid that are illustrations in the report itself. So again, don't be discouraged if your graph analysis doesn't work anymore, your graph view doesn't work anymore. You can use a plugin called Graph Analysis, which can give you specific details. So for example, when I'm working with the expert consulting model, I might come over here, run a Jacquard to find other notes that are related to the document I have up on the screen. And I can, from there, be looking at topics like, for example, Dick Benson. Dick Benson gave advice about marketing your consulting business that's basically, if they show up, bill them. Setting the expectation that you're going to exchange money for information. And then this report, which is not even referenced here, is about selling your services. This one's about money from expertise. And so I could talk about being that we implement the expert consulting model in order to generate money from your expertise, because ultimately you're selling your services. And then we have like Charles Cave. I tell the story about my grandfather and his consulting business. And of course, you can see this other stuff is mapped in. You know, I could talk about why consulting is a great way to stabilize your income, especially in a bad economy. But I can do that in this report here. And of course, this is the sidecar. It's going to give me ideas. All right. And then if I drill down into the manuscript, I can do the same thing. So the expert consulting model, it's a great way to boost your revenue. There's certain trends in email that helps you reach out and use email as part of your marketing. I can literally just do audio podcasts just from the sidebar information. You know, how come you want to make sure that you're trustworthy and credible? Because there's so many false experts out there. And how can you even test this system to know that it'll work out? And see, that this is mapping. Now here, consultant funnel model. There might be something from the funnel model that needs to be in the expert consulting model. And so I can even work out the combining of materials. And so, yes, I can complete a report in Obsidian. I can write a complete start to finish report, a deliverable, pump it out of here in a PDF. I can also capture all my materials in one place and then make sure that I'm including all of my notes. And as I include the notes into a deliverable, which is a report in this case, I can actually delete the notes from the system because, again, it's incorporated in a chapter or in a section of the report. And then I can even go along and create marketing materials. Why might you want to be a consultant? Because of the six-figure opportunity. What if you want to be an independent consultant and go beyond that model? Well, if you started as an independent consultant, you can move towards the agency model. I'm using machine learning to map all this in. And that's what this graph analysis does. Now, I can do co-citation. Now, we can talk about these things in a different context later. But there are many ways to approach this. I want to approach this in a way that's going to produce for me deliverables, not pretty charts, not, fancy graphics, And I hope this works. So I hope this is useful to you. I know some of my other videos are more popular because people are excited about taking notes and they want to know how to take notes. But I don't want you to worry so much about taking notes as much as creating artifacts that demonstrate your expertise and delivering those artifacts as deliverables. Maybe you're a copywriter or a marketer. Maybe you write technical papers, reports. Maybe you are finishing up a term paper or your final. The deliverable is what matters. All this other stuff has to assist the deliverable, and I just don't see the large graph view doing that once you have over a handful of notes. So again, we have 29,000 notes. If you're using an atomic note-taking system, it's very easy to get that many notes. And then we have categories of notes that are broken out by type so that we can have control documents such as these report sidecars, or we can have actual manuscripts in here, such as this manuscript here that's 5,500 words. And again, Obsidian handles it great. If you've got any questions about what I've covered here, I'm Justin Hitt with Ad Briefings Copywriting Tips. That's www.adbriefings.co.uk, where you can ask your additional questions or in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. But I've got a complete writing system put together, and it is designed for experts. Designed for experts. Yep, here it is. The Profit Writing System, a writing system that never fails. It's designed for experts to create deliverables. Sometimes it's products for clients. Sometimes it's reports for teachers. It's sometimes evidence in the marketplace of your expertise. It is not only a profitable writing system, it's a portable writing system that works on even the oldest clapped out piece of crap computer you've got. Or, as we've demonstrated in here, we actually use this system on borrowed computers. So I can actually, this one's actually in draft. We do this as a consultation right now. But I actually use this writing system with actual, when the internet's down, or an actual borrowed computers. So again, Obsidian works great. LogSec works great. Zettler works great. It's not the tool. It's what we're doing with the tool. And what I hope I showed you here is that we're writing deliverables. We're creating reports and artifacts and information products and courses. And we're creating term papers. And I told you guys before, I used to write people's doctoral theses. And I used a similar method. I didn't have the great tools we have today, but I used a similar method of building out the pieces and then assembling the pieces into an outline, and then from there taking the outline and creating the deliverable. Anyway, I'd love to see your comments in the description below. I'm going to try to get this uploaded. Hopefully it came out fine. Thanks for watching. Again, I'm Justin Hitt with Ad Briefings Copywriting Tips.